We'll see what's stewing and what's brewing at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester now. The Shadow Chancellor is set to announce plans for a £47 billion reduction in spending, targeting welfare, foreign aid and social housing.
Yes, at the Conservative Party conference today, he's expected to argue that Britain cannot keep spending money we simply do not have.
Well, the proposals will include banning foreign nationals from accessing benefits, a policy he says would save £23 billion on its own.
Well, let's speak now to the Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, Sir Mel Stride. Good to have you on the programme this morning, Mel.
Thank you, Ellie. Good morning.
Morning. And can you outline for us exactly how you're going to cut £47 billion? Because it sounds great, but I mean, the most obvious question to you is if it's such a good idea, why wasn't it done for the 14 years that you were in power?
On the welfare savings, which are £23 billion of the 47, we had actually demonstrated very clearly in government that we could make substantial savings. So when I was Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, we had made reforms to the work capability assessment. That's a gateway onto those long-term sickness and disability benefits, which was saving multiple billions of pounds and seeing about 450,000 fewer people going on to those benefits. So we were doing things, but of course we lost the general election and all of that was unwound by the current government. These things can be done, but they must be done, because this point about living within our means is absolutely critical. We are on a trajectory in our country of debt and deficit and interest on that debt that is totally unsustainable, and we are the party that is standing up and calling that out and saying that we will be totally committed to fiscal responsibility and making sure that we create an economy where debt is coming down and we have a sustainable future.
You see, Mel, I think a lot of people would listen to what you say and they agree with it totally, and they may also think, well, why wasn't this done before? And they'll look at this and they'll be quite shocked that foreign nationals would be receiving housing and sickness benefits and all sorts of things that go with it, and that they're being paid this right from the start. So my question is to you, it seems quite obvious that they shouldn't be getting this. A lot of people will be saying, well done, but why were they getting all of this?
Well, as I say, Eamon, we were fundamentally reforming the welfare system, and there was a lot more that we would have done. We consulted, for example, on other benefits like PIP, with a view to bringing fundamental changes in there as well. So, you know, welfare reform is a journey, but where we are at the moment is we're in opposition. We've had the time to do the deep thinking around welfare and other issues, and we are the party that recognises we're living beyond our means, and if we carry on as we are as a country at the moment, it will end in a dark place, and therefore we are going to be fiscally responsible, and we're going to make clear statements to the public now, very clear policy statements as to where the Conservative Party stands on things like debt. It's not fair to be passing that debt on to future generations. The interest on that debt alone is £100 billion a year. That is twice what we spend on defence. That is unsustainable. So we are setting out today, and I'll be saying this in my speech later this morning, where these savings are going to come from, and it will also free us up not just to bear down on debt, which is the responsible thing to do, but also to look at how we get taxes down, for example, as part of growing the economy.
Mr. Stride, you're speaking to us now from Manchester in the Tory party conference. We're asking Tom Harwood, our deputy political editor, earlier about the atmosphere there. He admitted it's the quietest that he's known it in the 9 years that he's been attending conference. And there's been posts all over X yesterday and this morning just showing that some events are poorly attended and saying that the atmosphere is quite flat. And you've got polls putting you at third, some even putting you fourth in the polls. Some would say that's a reflection of your relevance now. Do you feel as though this is a sign that the party's dying?
No, I think this conference will be part of a turning point. I think we had a superb speech from Kemi yesterday. The hall was packed, standing ovations, a real buzz. And I think what that is about is that a lot of people for some time now have been saying, we don't know what the Conservative Party stands for, we don't hear enough about policies. Well, at this conference, that is a turning point, because we are talking about how we will control our borders. We made a big announcement that Kemi made around leaving the ECHR and relation to the Human Rights Act as well. And I'm making big announcements about big, serious, grown-up spending cuts to the size of government in order that we can live within our means, taking the very mature decisions that we need to do as an economy. And I think by the end of this conference, people will clearly understand where the Conservative Party is at, what we stand for, and we continue forward under Kemi's leadership.
Shadow Chancellor, do you know what I don't understand? And I would be interested if you had a view. This Chinese spy case, what's going on there?
Well, we need to know exactly what's going on there. What we do know is that there appears to have been a pretty serious case floating around relating to two individuals and potential spying. We know that the CPS decided there was no case finally to prosecute, and there's been a suggestion at least that was because the government itself acted in a way that it wasn't prepared to deem China an enemy of this country as opposed to a challenge to this country. Jonathan Powell is the security advisor, and I think the best next step on here in terms of getting to the bottom of your question, Eamon, is for him to appear before Parliament and answer those questions.
They're not an enemy. We don't want to be able to describe them as an enemy, but you described them. Well, how would you describe them? How would you see China? How would you classify China?
Look, we are in a competitive situation with China that definitely spills over into all sorts of areas, including cyber activities, and there are obviously various tensions around the world, including Taiwan, and a kind of strategic competitiveness with China, which is expressed through all sorts of different things, through trade, through the stealing of intellectual property, through to, as I say, cyber activities and so on. And I think we have to take that threat extremely seriously.
Sir Mel, got to leave it there. Thanks very much for your time this morning. Have a good speech and have a great rest of conference. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Well, GB News' Deputy Political Editor Tom Harwood is also in Manchester at the Tory party conference. And Tom, you were listening across to Sir Mel Stride there. What did you make of what he had to say?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, really focusing in on that message discipline, both stronger borders and stronger economy, the themes of this conference. Yesterday, of course, was all about borders, was all about leaving the ECHR, the Human Rights Act, as Mel Stride was explaining there. But today the pivot comes to the economy. And this is where the Conservative Party, I think, sees a niche in politics at the moment. They know that the Labour Party has shot its economic credibility. The vast majority of the country thinks that things aren't going well economically. We see the highest inflation in the G7. We see the highest borrowing costs in the G7. We see growth forecasts being cut, not going up, and a 30 to 50 billion pound black hole for the budget that the Chancellor has to deliver next month. Whilst the Reform Party is seen as credible, perhaps, on migration, and certainly hard line on migration, where I think the Conservative Party sees a gap is that we haven't yet seen a full-throttled economic agenda from the Reform Party. And perhaps this is where the Conservative Party sees its electoral niche, to be the serious, grown-up party of the economy. And yet there is a problem here. Of course, that the country thought that the Conservative Party lost its economic credibility in October 2022. There's a real challenge that the Conservative Party has to claw back the economic credibility that was the backbone of its electoral victories in 2010, in 2015, in 2017, and arguably 2019 too. Ultimately, without an economic foundation, the Conservative Party perhaps doesn't have a viable path to regaining credibility in the country.